Okay, I'm going to take you guys out. Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Skipbound, and once again, I'm bringing it back. Some circumstances happened, and you know what I said to myself? I talked to a buddy of mine, and I said, you know what? You should bring your show back. You should get your opinions out there. Not that my opinions haven't always been out there, but I decided I think I'm in a good place right now to where I could bring back the top 5 weekly, and I'm just happy to be talking about Christian Bale films this week in honor of Ford v Ferrari. What a great film! I'll tell you what, period piece, great acting. The race car scenes are just phenomenal. The racing scenes, great cast. Tracy Letts, John Bernthal, and of course, one of the 2 people that star in the film, Christian Bale, is who we're going to be talking about tonight. But I don't do this show alone. I always have some guests with me. And so I want to bring my guests in right now. And I want to say thank you to my guests. My 2 guests, my good buddy, Jeremy, the Adam Adams. Jeremy, glad to have you tonight in the first episode back of Top 5 Weekly after a long hiatus.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to be. I think I was on one a long time ago, but I'm really glad to be back. You asked me actually if I wanted to do either Matt Damon or Christian Bale, 2 really great actors. I would have been happy to talk about either guy, but just rewatched one of Bale's great movies. He's fresh in the mind and he's fantastic. So I'm really excited to be here and maybe spotlighting a couple movies of his that not everybody knows. So it'll be fun.
And Nick Carley, someone I haven't really known that long, someone I've got to know a little bit lately, and I was glad to have you on this evening as well. You actually filling in, but I'm still glad to have you.
No, I'm happy you asked me as a fill-in. So I hope my list isn't too terribly thrown together. But I think after looking through this list over the last few hours, this was a lot tougher list than I was expecting. So I'm very curious how this list goes because there's easily more, probably twice as many films that we could put on this list. So
yeah, you could do a top 10.
At least.
Absolutely.
Still having honorable mentions because dang it, I missed that. But we would be here all day if we did that. So the top 5 weekly, that's just our top 5 plus the 3 of us. So let's see.
Dan, I'm sorry, I can't hear Nick. Can you bring one of us out and put us back in? I have this problem with StreamYard sometimes.
Okay. All right, no problem. I'm going to bring you back in right now, Jeremy. All right, Nick.
Can you try talking again, Nick?
Jeremy, can you hear me?
No. Can you maybe take him out and bring him back? I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, that's all. No.
Not going to be much fun if I can't hear Nick.
No, not at all. Okay. How about now?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
That's fine.
All right. Hey,
I'm sure you had something very witty to say. I'm sorry I couldn't.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be the YouTube or the internet if we didn't have some technical difficulties. But okay, well, since you're my closest to me on here, Jeremy, let's go with you. Give us your number 5.
Yeah, for my number 5 is probably my one kind of not too obvious pick. My top 4, are probably a little more expected. But for my number 5, I wanted to highlight a movie that I think is a little underseen and underrated, a really great, powerful film. And I think Christian Bale really stands out. And it is a film called Rescue Dawn, directed by Werner Herzog. I don't know. Neither of you guys have that one. All right. Excellent. I was hoping we could kind of mix it up a little bit. Yes. But yes. So Werner Herzog made a documentary called Little Dieter Needs to Fly, a really fantastic documentary about a man named Dieter Dengler, who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam. And he went through some really interesting experiences. And it was really kind of an unusual, interesting character. So I think he was so inspired that Werner decided to make an actual narrative film about this character after having made the documentary. And he cast Christian Bale in the title role, and there are other great actors in the film, such as Jeremy Davies and Steve Zahn. And yeah, it's basically a guy who always wanted to fly. He was obsessed with flight and with planes. And when the Vietnam War came, this was kind of his opportunity to fly and to be a pilot. And unfortunately, you know, he went down in the jungles of Vietnam. He was in a prisoner of war camp for many years. But the amazing thing about this movie, especially coming from Werner Herzog, who I think, you know, is kind of known for very harrowing, very oppressive, dark films, is that Peter Dengler is a person who just was full of a great human spirit. He was a very positive guy. He never, in this film, you never really get the feeling that he's defeated or that he's just going to be destroyed by this horrible experience. And you see Steve Zahn and Jeremy Davies kind of, you know, his fellow prisoners really falling apart and succumbing to, you know, a horrible situation that few of us can really even, you know, imagine. And yet Dieter Dengler is just this spirit that he, you know, whatever it is, he's going to shine through. He's going to find a way to get through it. It's a very inspiring movie. And Christian Bale, I think, had played a lot of tortured characters up to that point. He'd been in films like The Machinist, and to play this really positive, really almost childlike character really struck me at the time, and I still think it's one of his best.
Yeah, Nick, have you seen Rescue Dawn?
I've seen it once, like closer to when it came out. I remember that was the first movie I saw with Steve Zahn, where he wasn't like some, you know, comedic, you know, the same sort of character he's been playing, and I was super impressed. I was like, okay, good for you, because that like, because he did a great job. And then no, I mean, it's just a really great war film. I mean, I guess it's not really a war film; it's during war. Yeah. But like I said, I saw it once a while back, but it kept an impression because I still like it. When people bring it up, I'm like, yeah, that's a really good film. So
yeah, and as far as I saw it in the theater and I own it on DVD, and I haven't seen a lot of Werner Herzog movies, but that was one I saw and I was very blown away by how fantastic it was. I really was like, wow, this freaking, you know, they was talking about Oscars for a lot of people in that movie. Yeah. That's how good it was. But that was a great pick. Great number 5, Jeremy. Let's go to Nick. What's your number 5?
Yeah, this one was a coin toss. I guess if you had a 3-sided coin, there was 3 different films that I wanted to put here. But I ended up going with The Prestige.
That is on mine coming up. So
okay,
we have to wait on that.
We'll wait on that one then. Okay. Well,
I think we went the same. I think had the same 3 in mind probably.
I feel bad it's that low then. But yeah, like I said, it was a tough choice.
Yeah, I do not have The Prestige on mine. All right. So I guess it's my turn. You know, I actually changed my list yesterday going into this. I thought to myself, you know what? I want to shine a light on something that I really love. And I thought, you know what? He's got so many great films, and I'm like, should I exclude that? Put that on my? No, I'm gonna put that in my top 5 because I think it's an over the top, phenomenal performance with great music, and that is Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
We'll be revisiting that one.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, now I feel good that we all got that.
Right. Yeah, that'll be higher up.
All right, let's go back to Jeremy then with his number 4.
I'm going to turn it back to Nick because my number 4 is The Prestige.
Okay.
Oh, okay. My number 4 is The Dark Knight.
Well, I think we talk about The Prestige now. I'll turn it back to you to talk about The Prestige.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
That's okay.
Oh, no, I ruined it.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
That's all right, Nick.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start with The Prestige. I don't know. It's just this is a movie that I can watch over and over again, and I mean, along with Hugh Jackman's performance, it's just a very well done, like thriller, suspenseful film, and it's arguably one of Nolan's better. I would put it in the top 3 of Nolan's films, in my personal opinion. But no, it's just the whole. And then I guess spoilers are out the window on this, right?
Probably won't maybe not get too deep into spoilers.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well,
we can say that there are some interesting turns and that allow his performance to go in some.
Yeah, exactly. In the last third of the film, when the big twist is revealed, it was super interesting, and the way he was able to pull that off was really great. So I don't know. He's just very convincing the whole time, and I just love his back and forth with him and Hugh Jackman, and it was just very well done, especially the scenes when he's in jail and stuff like that. So it's one of my, like it's on the list. It's one of my favorite films he's ever done. So I really enjoyed that film.
Yeah, and when I said I had recently watched the Christian Bale movie, so he was a little fresher in my mind to do this list. It was The Prestige. I just rewatched it last week in prep for a trivia match that I was doing, and I was just struck again. I really wanted to just limit. You kind of spoiled a little bit, so I'm going to spoil a little. I wanted to limit to one Nolan film, so it's a little
fair
tough.
enough.
He's done a lot of great work with Christopher Nolan, but revisiting this one, it really is, especially when you rewatch the movie, given there's a lot of twists, it really is remarkable, his performance. And you can see, maybe the first time you see it, you kind of read his character's behavior one way, but when you go back and watch it again, you can see all of the little quirks and all of the little details of things that he's saying and not saying and things that he's doing. It's really remarkable. And I think sometimes the best performances can be when one great actor has another great actor to play off of. And I just think Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale going against each other in that film is really, really tremendous. It's kind of like when you've got Hugh Jackman in Prisoners with Jake Gyllenhaal is another example. When you get great actors to play off each other like that, it really creates even better. They elevate each other's craft. And I think this is one of the times that Christian Bale's really played off of somebody else rather than just kind of dominating the film on his own. And it really is a tremendous performance. And he's obviously done a lot of great work in different Nolan films, but for whatever reason, I think that one stands out for me.
Exactly. All right, Nick, and since you said you're 4 with The Dark Knight, we're going to have to talk about that later.
Okay.
And so it's back to me for my number 4. And my number 4 is, I'll tell you what, when I walked, I had no idea what the heck I was getting into with this movie. And when I walked out, I was absolutely blown away by everybody in the film. But Christian Bale playing a character that I'd never seen him play before. He was like an intellectual, a guy that was smart. And he was like, he had all the answers in a different way than like he would be like if he was a magician or if he was Batman or somebody like that, because he looked at it was a film set in reality because this really happened. And it's his portrayal of Michael Burry in The Big Short. I mean, I
don't have that one, Nick.
No, it was right on the edge. It's an honorable mention.
I don't have it either. So go ahead, Dan.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived through the housing market crash and the stock market crash. And, when you're just watching TV and you're watching this stuff and you're watching the news or you're reading, you don't really know what goes into these things. When the way Adam McKay told this story, it was so in layman's terms, like where the average person could understand everything that was going on. And Christian Bale gives one of the most grounded, just realistic portrayals of a person. And you have to believe him. If you don't believe these guys that are doing this in this movie, then you don't believe the movie. And that's what's great about his portrayal of Michael Burry. He was kind of like a slacker type guy, but he was a genius. He had the answers, and people wouldn't listen to him. And then he finally got tied up with Steve Carell and all that. And then they finally figured it out like, oh my God, this is really happening. I'll tell you what, Adam McKay, I want to see him do more films like this. And this is a baseball movie I want him to do called Screwball. I want that so bad, but that's another whole story. But yeah, I had Michael Burry from The Big Short at number 4.
Yeah, I'm sure that was an honorable mention for both of us.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to get a cut, get Rescue Dawn and on my list and stuff, but it's a tremendous movie. I actually just caught up with it pretty recently for the first time. And I think one of the things, it's great. One of the things that really stood out for me is, all these characters, Bale's character and Carell and Brad Pitt, they're all kind of misfits. They're all kind of like on the fringes of society. They all have like these personality issues. And Christian Bale, I'm pretty sure his character has some type of Asperger's or autism, something like that. And he has no social skills. He doesn't know how to relate to other people. And it's a really effective performance of that. But also, he's, it's a heartfelt performance. You feel for this guy, and these characters, by the end of the movie become very conflicted, and they're making decisions that, maybe aren't that great, in terms of making money off of other people's misfortune. And I think the movie really portrays that very effectively. It's great.
Oh, yeah. Anything to say about The Big Short, Nick?
I mean, just that. Yeah, I would say it was my number 6 if we went that
mine
far.
too.
Yeah, it's like I've seen it a couple times, and just the way it's directed is brilliant, and and Bale sells that role so well. And I mean, just like you were saying, the whole fact of like he had it right this whole time for months and months, and no one, like, everybody put him aside, and still didn't really even get the credit after it happened. But no, he just nailed it exactly like this guy was in real life. So it was a very good portrayal of that character.
All right, so we're going back to Jeremy with his number 3.
All right, I'm almost certain this is going to be higher on some other lists, but this is as high as I could put it. It is the film that he kind of damaged himself for. It is called The Machinist.
I actually don't have that one.
You guys do not have that one.
I have it as my number 6.
All right, you're number 6.
Jeremy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't think I was going to have to be the one talking about this movie, but I will do that. Okay, so The Machinist is, I'm sure a lot of people have heard the stories about Christian Bale. Was in this thriller in the mid-2000s where he lost a lot of weight to play a character who is basically suffering from he can't sleep. He basically has a terrible insomnia, and that causes him to not be able to eat. It causes him to become delusional. He's got, he can basically only do this manual labor job. Like, he can't really do anything else in his life. The only real relationship he has is with a woman, a working girl, so to speak. And it's a really, it's not my favorite movie because it's very well made, but it's a little tough. It's definitely not one you want to rewatch too many times, but it really is a movie for his performance as this character. You can never forget it. And the amount of commitment to one's craft that, an actor like Christian Bale demonstrate in a performance like this, you can really only put it up there with like Robert De Niro and Raging Bull, and certain other actors who have had that commitment. Jared Leto and Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club. I mean, you only get this once in a while where actors will actually kind of punish themselves in their bodies. We actually had it this year with Joaquin Phoenix and Joker losing a lot of weight and kind of going to a very dark place for a character. And, it's not always the most fun to watch or the most entertaining movies, but you always have to kind of be in awe when an actor will go there. And it's a incredible performance, a really well thought out character. And, you kind of go to that dark place with him. So I almost was even thinking maybe it would be higher, but it was about as high as I could put it because I had a couple more performances above it that I feel engaged with a little more. But you got to give it up for The Machinist.
Oh, yeah.
Nick, have you seen The Machinist?
I have actually not. That's why it wasn't on my list.
There you go.
I have.
Unfortunately, it's been on my list for a while, but never got around to it.
Oh my God. It is such a difficult film to watch. And it's not like it's difficult to watch because of it's not good. It's a great film. It's just like he's dealing with so much in his head, but the loss of weight and just everything about his character is just so. It's one of those films that's just so hard to watch because it's so good. It's so good you just don't want to look at it. It's so good.
You have to look away sometimes.
Yeah, you really do. And I had it at 6, my honorable mentions. So we've all brought up one of our honorable mentions.
There we go.
We've got
I was like, man, I can't fit 6 films on my list. I can only do 5. What am I going to do here? I actually had The Machinist at 5, and I changed it, and I wanted to talk about The Big Short.
There you go.
So there you go. Okay, so now we're going back to Nick with Nick's number 3.
Okay. I'd be surprised if no one has this above me, but I'm actually, because I've only seen it once, and I kind of want to watch it again after reading through this, but I'm going to go with David O. Russell's The Fighter.
Yeah, have that.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've only seen it once. That's why it's not on higher up the list.
Yeah, well,
obviously, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. You're going to get some information about me, Nick.
Yeah.
You didn't think you knew. You're going to know. You're going to learn about me a little bit.
All right.
Talking about the fighter. So that means it goes back to me. All right, guys. Now, I want to preface this by saying I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm not going to say if I'm a Democrat, if I'm a Republican, if I'm whatever, or any of you guys, what your political views are. But what I want to say is when you go to the movies, you want to be pulled into the film. No matter what the film is about, there might be a character that you absolutely love. He's a good guy and you love the character, or that you might be seeing a character that you cannot stand. You despise this person for everything. And sometimes that is a great performance by an actor. And it just so happens that the person going into the movie I despised. But the performance of Christian Bale as this person, I was floored last year. I was absolutely floored last year when I saw Christian Bale play Dick Cheney in Vice.
Yep.
Speaking of Adam McKay.
Another Adam McKay film. It couldn't have been more perfect casting, in my opinion. I mean, I forget who won the Oscar for Best Actor. I can't remember who won the Oscar. I'll tell you right now, I actually lost all my.
It was Rami Malek for
Bohemian Rhapsody. Bunch of baloney, if you ask me. Even though Rami Malek was the best part about Bohemian Rhapsody, they would not vote for Christian Bale as Dick Cheney. I'm telling you that right now, on camera, live. You can come at me if you want, people out there. This guy gave the best performance of the year. It was the fact that he played Dick Cheney is why he did not win, because there's a lot of leftist liberals in California and the voting bodies. And no, we're not going to vote for this animal. I mean, he literally portrayed this guy as a despicable human being. I mean, and I felt that watching the movie. And that to me is a great performance. And so I could not do a top 5 Christian Bale list without putting Dick Cheney on the list. What do you guys think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking before, Dan, but there's probably 2 really big regrets that I have of movies that I just haven't had a chance to see. Vice is one of them. I'll probably mention the other one that I haven't seen later that I really wanted to check out before the match and just didn't have a chance, before the show and just didn't have a chance. But I will say this. I talked about him, what he did to himself for The Machinist, and then you kind of saw that again here, gaining a lot of weight, kind of changing his look, changing his whole demeanor. And again, kind of, from what you've said, kind of seems like he went to a bit of a dark place to really realize the character. And then this maybe you could say is even more impressive because it's a real person. This isn't just something that he's just making up like The Machinist, this kind of fanciful character. This is a real person. He had to get into that space. He had to do his research and play that. And I definitely am very much looking forward to seeing the film, especially for his performance, and Sam Rockwell as George Bush. So definitely one way or another, it had to be on the list.
Sam Rockwell, you can live. Josh Brolin plays a better W than Sam Rockwell does. Yeah. But that's a whole nother ball of wax. Nick, what do you think about as Dick Cheney?
Oh, I mean, unfortunately, like with Jeremy, I never did get a chance to watch it. I wanted to really badly. Yeah. My father watched it and he talked about how much he loved it. And I saw all the production and, like I said, the body morphing with Christian Bale and how I was like, he looked exactly like him and
talked like him.
Yeah, he talked like. I mean, yeah, it was spitting image and also that as much as anyone might try to disagree, Dick Cheney was a terrible person. So and like I said, I'm basically channeling my father who watched it, and he agrees with everything you said. Was that it's just like he like you hated this, you hated him by the end of the movie, which means that's a fantastic performance.
And I'll just say, Dan, you said like he's like the perfect actor to play Dick Cheney's really not. Like when you think Dick Cheney and you get an image of him in your mind, you don't think Christian Bale, which I think is an even bigger, compliment to him, that he can transform and become somebody. It isn't just let's get the guy who looks and sounds the most like Dick Cheney.
And I will say, I'm glad you brought that up, because Adam McKay came to Christian Bale and said, "Hey, I want you," and he was like, "Oh man, I don't know about this and this."
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't want to do it. Christian Bale didn't want to do it. He had to go to a special place to say, "I think I can do it. Can I get the voice?" And they knew they could do prosthetics and all that stuff to make him look like him. But if he could get the voice down, then he could go with the prosthetics and the makeup and all that and say, "Yeah, I could do this," and he had to come across as despicable. And that's what he did in the film. So that's why it's such a great performance. All right, so we're going to go back to Jeremy with his number 2.
All right. I feel like we might still be waiting, but my number 2 is the great person Dickie Eklund in The Fighter.
Well, it's my number 2, and it was.
We're not waiting then.
It's Nick's number 3. So let's.
All right.
You start, and then Nick goes, and I'll go last.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So. Yeah, I this is one that at the time that it came out, I was such a fan of David O. Russell. Coming off, I actually saw the Three Kings in the theater in '99, and I've just been a huge fan of this director ever since. And then I went to see Silver Linings Playbook and thought that was such. Oh wait, that was later. I'm sorry. So yeah, Three Kings, and then he kind of had a dark period, and then it was like, he's coming back. He's got this movie, The Fighter, and I went to see it with great interest, and it's a fantastic movie. I think Dan kind of knows I'm not a huge sports guy, so I don't know very much about. I didn't know who these brothers were prior to coming to the movie. I don't really know too much about boxing, but a great story is a great story, and this movie just knocked me out. Mark Wahlberg, so convincing as this boxer, and one of the great things in the movie is all these crazy sisters that he has 7 of these Boston sisters who are these real life, crazy characters. Melissa Leo, tremendous as his mom. I thought Amy Adams really went to a different place to play this character. You really hadn't seen her play kind of a tough character like that before. But obviously the standout in this movie is Christian Bale as his brother Dickie, who was his brother's boxing manager. He was a former boxer himself. He had a very famous fight, as they talk about earlier in the film, and then his life is just ravaged by drug addiction and just bad decisions in his life. And you see that play out throughout the film. There's a part when he goes to prison in the film, and his performance is so powerful. You see what a flawed guy this is and some of the damaging things he does to his brother. But even through all that, you see the heart that this guy has, the knowledge that he has of the sport. And you care about this guy and you care about their relationship. And when they come together at a certain point, it really means something. And, I know Dan said he had some personal stories, perhaps, that might tie into this film. But I'll just say I have someone very close in my family that, came into my family and then suffered from drug addiction, not too different from Dickie Eklund. And, I had to try to support this person and have a relationship with this person over many years. And this film, I think, captures that, more than most films. They really show the humanity and the difficulty and everything that goes on to having a family member, someone close to you who is has the disease of addiction. So it's fantastic. And, I don't think you can, have this list without having Christian Bale's Oscar-winning performance in this film.
All right, Nick.
All right, I'll keep it real short since like I mentioned, I only have seen this movie once, which I know is a crime to probably most people. But the fact that I've only seen it once and it's number 3 is kind of showing how good of a performance it is. Like you were saying with Amy Adams, I'll just real quick. The last movie I had seen with her was Enchanted.
Yeah.
Seeing her
right before it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I was like, wow, she's the real deal. But anyways, going back to Christian Bale and just how supportive he is of Mark Wahlberg's character. And then the whole documentary story arc was really once that plays out was very, very crushing and very well, like that really pulled at you when you saw that. Yeah. But, it's just a great movie all around. And I've also been a big fan of David O. Russell. You know, I almost thought about putting American Hustle on this list. So I don't know. It's just fantastic. If I would have seen it more, it'd probably be higher up my list.
Yeah, well, I only have one movie above it. So and by now, if you did the math, you could figure out what my number one is. But I'll tell you what, guys, I don't know if you know it, but I'm from a place called Lowell, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Guess where Dickie and Mickey Ward are from?
Yeah. No, that's what
I'm
looking up right now. Yeah.
So I want to tell you about this guy. This guy was people that I grew up around. My father was friends with people just like this guy. This guy was scum. He was a dirtbag, you know, and he dragged his brother down his brother had a career that was going to go skyrocket. He's going to be this great boxer, you know, Irish Mickey Ward. And then the sisters, and this is what growing up in Lowell, Massachusetts was like. You know, the trash in the backyards and stuff, the tenements. That's where I live. That's those streets where they filmed on. That's where I come from. So David O. Russell got that right. He got and one of the best drug addiction characters I've ever seen on film. I think it's one of the best portrayals of drug addiction I have ever seen on film. That's how Christian Bale goes there to where he needs. You know, and I don't want to talk, you know, smack to, but somebody's like, oh, well, he was the lead and blah, blah, blah. So what? All right. Oscars and Academy, where it's a popularity contest. You need to put the people where you need to put them so they can win. You know what I mean? I mean, so people with 8 minutes of screen time can get an Oscar. You know, I mean, come on, give me a break. He was in supporting because Irish Mickey Ward is the fighter, and he should have been lead if you're going to nominate somebody in Christian Bale supporting. But that's just, you know, I'd agree. But yeah, I could not do a top 5 Christian Bale without putting Dickie Eklund. And I'll tell you right now, the place where they trained and that my father knew Dickie Eklund. We moved from Massachusetts just when Irish Mickey Ward was growing and getting bigger in his career. So we missed, even though I followed him by watching sports, watching the fights on TV, we kind of missed that whole era of him living there. And who knows, my father probably has all kinds of stories of Dickie Eklund, you know, and of course he's a fan of Irish Mickey Ward, just like I was. And please, somebody, there is another movie in there, and it's the trilogy of fights between Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti. How you can do it, when you could do it, what style you could do it is, I don't care. Please, we need this movie because that is another whole story in and of itself that's ridiculously unbelievable. You will be shocked at these fights.
And I know Wahlberg's been trying to get that movie made for years. He's talked about that, so hopefully.
Maybe by a different filmmaker, you know, a different style even, you know, black and white or something like that. I don't know. But I want that so bad. The fighter too, so bad. But
I just have to ask you, Dan, like, do you think this is one of the most accurate films to Massachusetts and like that area? Because I feel like sometimes I don't know, because I'm not from there. I feel like some of these movies are a little over the top, like they're just kind of putting it on and doing the accent. But it just felt more authentic to me when I was watching it.
I'm telling you, the tenements, you know, where the family lived, the 2-story, we call them tenements, with the big porch out front and all the trash in the back, and all of them, like the streets, the way the streets were, the concrete on the sidewalks and the streets. I mean, they got it right. I mean, they got it exactly right. I mean, and then he was like doing streets. Mickey Ward was at the beginning. That's where I come from. Those are the streets of Lowell, Massachusetts. Yeah. They did not cut corners. They wanted you to believe that where this film took place is part of the upbringing of these characters and who they are as people. And if you're from Boston, it's in your blood. It never gets out of you. You know, people will say that about me. It's, you know, it's in your blood. You know, sometimes I can get a little upset about things, and I try to relax. Jeremy is a very calming influence on me a lot of the time, but it's in my blood. So you know the type of people that, you know,
I
they
always
portrayed
felt like The Fighter and Gone Baby Gone were maybe the most accurate films of that area.
But Departed is very accurate.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, very accurate. I'm not going to get into it. I just watched it earlier today.
Yeah.
But, all right, so that was Jeremy's number 2 and Nick's number 3 and my number 2. So now we're going to go to Nick's number 2 since.
Oh boy. Okay. This is the epitome. Well, and I'm really stretching this is your personal list right here. This movie had a Metacritic score of 33.
Oh my God, I think I know what it is.
I love this movie.
I know what it is.
Popcorn like value, and just it's just such a fun action film. It's 2002's Equilibrium.
Wow.
Oh, it is not what I thought.
I never saw it actually, Nick. Wow.
Equilibrium. Okay.
That is a great choice.
And like I said, this is definitely one that like people are probably like crying because I put this above The Fighter. So, like I said,
before you get into it, I thought for sure you were going Rain of Fire. So, you've definitely redeemed. You've made the right choice with this one.
I do like that movie, but not as much as this one.
All right.
No, it's just one of those short, fun, like it had a it had a pretty generic setting and everything, but no, that was just. That was shortly after I had seen American Psycho, so I was and all bunch of other things, and I just and then of course The Matrix was a big thing that back then too, so that kind of was riding the coattails of that, and I don't know, the whole gun kata thing was just super cool to me. I was also it's 2002, so I was 9 years old when I saw it.
Oh God,
so that puppy scene was kind of.
Dan and I were much older than that. We're very mad at you right now. But go ahead.
Oh wait, did I say 9? I meant 18. Hey, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Jeremy and I can tell you.
I can't.
Much better.
I can't read tonight. Yeah, I'm sorry. It was 2002.
That's closer.
18. Yes, 18. Senior in high school when this movie came out. So still in my early movie watching days. Yeah. So I hadn't seen a lot of quality films at this point. But anyways. No, Christian Bale just being very stern and kicking ass all over the place, and it had a fun enough story to keep me engaged, and I just watched it a lot, and it was just really entertaining to me. So it was just one of those like throw your brain away, don't really think about it kind of films. But like I said, in my personal opinion, it was one of his favorite performances for me.
Jeremy, do you got any thoughts?
I do actually. I actually might be higher on this movie than Nick is, and it's weird because it's on his list. But yeah, I think this is a very unfortunately forgotten, very excellent action movie from the early 2000s. I've always thought this movie doesn't get enough love. It's one of the really early films that gave you that gun kata thing before they did that later on in like John Wick. It's really kind of ahead of its time in that way. It really has a lot of that same kind of choreography. But yeah, it's a good premise. It's basically a little bit in the future, and people are like taking drugs and stuff to eliminate emotions. So that it's a society where you're not supposed to emote. You're just supposed to live a life where people are productive, and all those pesky emotions and things aren't getting in the way. And Christian Bale just is so fantastic. Even in a movie like this, it is a little more popcorny sci-fi kind of movie. It's fantastic at showing that blank lack of emotion, and then of course gradually a little inspired by kind of like Fahrenheit 451. He's a guy who sees that the society he's in is really not the way it should be, and he starts letting those emotions come out. And there's one scene that you can really never forget in this movie involving a dog. I'm not going to get into the details, but that scene is really affecting.
I mean, even more like John Wick there.
Yeah, but different sort of thing involving a dog. But it really is a good movie. I recommend it to you, Dan. It's more popcorny, like you said, but it's a really good, really kind of forgotten popcorn movie, and I think it was really in the wake of The Matrix, I think it was a good, kind of movie to come after that. And it's way better than the Matrix sequels, which were at the same time.
Oh,
it was like for me, it was the real Matrix sequel.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right, guys. So we're down to our number ones.
Okay.
And I gotta now know what everybody's number one is. But Jeremy's number one is, I believe, my number 5. I believe. So Jeremy, go ahead, talk about your number one, and then I will talk about it. Then we'll go into Nick's number one, which I believe is the same as mine. And then Nick and I will talk about our number ones after Jeremy and I talk about his number one and my number 5. So Jeremy, go ahead with your number one.
Well, I will say I first discovered Christian Bale, I think, in his first major role, which was Empire of the Sun in 1987. And as a young actor, he was really great in that. And he, after that, continually worked. He was in, movies like Newsies and a lot of other things and some other honorable mentions I'm going to get into later. But he was just kind of that guy. He would pop up sometimes. He wasn't like, a name that stood out, really. He was just kind of a working actor until the year 2000, where he was hired to be in a film adaptation of a book that had been very controversial back in the 80s, and they decided to make a film out of it. And it is directed by Mary Herron. It is American Psycho. And I think this was the movie that really put Christian Bale in the forefront, took him from being the kind of this working actor to really a star, and showed what a fantastic, incredible actor he is. And we haven't even mentioned yet, this is a British guy, and a lot of our roles that we've picked here have been playing Americans. Yeah, and he plays this American yuppie in the 80s, and it's such a tremendous performance because if you actually go back to the book that was written way back when, it's kind of lurid, and it's kind of like, it's almost like, oh, this guy is psycho and he's crazy, he's doing all this stuff, and isn't that kind of, in a way, awesome? But when Mary Herron, the director, was hired to kind of make this movie, they decided to take a different angle in the material, and it's like, no, this guy isn't awesome, this guy's pathetic, he's a joke. And Christian Bale really plays into the fact that this guy is pathetic. He's completely shallow. He has like no character at all. He's all about his appearance and his job. And it's totally the expression of the 80s yuppie culture, the consumer culture that, Dan and I were around then. I was a kid then, and I remember what that was like. It was all, the corporations, the money, make more money, sell more stuff. I had all the toys peddled to me back then. Like that was like the era of the toy commercial and all this stuff. And this is like all he's living. And I love the little details in the movie, like how he's into this pop music. And of course, being an 80s guy, I knew all of the pop music that he talks about, every single song that he mentions in it. I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. And he takes it's like a nerd. He's like, takes it really seriously. Like, oh, Genesis came out with Invisible Touch in 1986 and this, and then he goes on and on and on about this stuff. The guy has like, there's nothing under, and yeah, he gets into this dark fantasy where he's killing people, and I personally think there's some debate whether he's actually killing people or whether he's just kind of got these dark fantasies playing in his mind. And I think it's even, if you think he's not actually doing it, it makes him even more pathetic. Like he's just this pathetic shell of a guy just playing out these evil, misogynistic, killing fantasies in his mind, and he's just nothing. And Christian Bale showed, on the one hand, it's a star-making role, and on the other hand, it's a performance that has like no ego to it. He's willing to like make himself look really bad in this character. And that, I think, has kind of been the theme throughout his career. He'll play somebody who's struggling with drug addiction. He'll play a person that many of us hate, like Dick Cheney. He'll play, a character in The Machinist who's just completely gone to just withered away. And I think American Psycho is the movie that started all of that really put him at the forefront. And to me, it has to be number one because it's the movie that is who it showed me who Christian Bale was.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have no issue with you putting Patrick Bateman as number one. I just had ones that I put in front of it. That's which is minute details when it comes to that, and that's your personal. But I absolutely love this freaking movie. The music is like so right up my alley. Just like, people don't realize Reese Witherspoon's in this movie.
Yeah.
Jared Leto is in this movie. And it's like some of
Willem Dafoe,
Willem Dafoe. It's like some early work from these guys. And you're like, wow, look at the cast of this freaking movie. When you rewatch it, and I agree 100. I think this is a drug fuel, just like fantasy. What do you call it? What do they call it? Or fever dream. I think it was like a drug crazed fever dream that he was on, and he may have killed one person. I think the rest of it was just like a drug fueled fever dream type.
Throwing chainsaws and magically having them reach their target and stuff like that.
Come on. Give me a break, right? I mean, that chainsaw throw from the top and hit the girl in the head.
And nobody in the apartment hears it. It's so clearly ridiculous, intentionally so.
Yeah. But you didn't care. You don't care because you're once you buy into him as a character, and he's just a piece of crap, like it's an egotistical kind of like guy. It's all about you have to be perfect. I love the stuff at the beginning when they're comparing business cards. That is some of the funniest stuff.
That is my favorite scene in the
It is so good.
They're all, well, how about you? Give me a break. I have real problems in the world. You guys.
What? Yeah, and the whole inner monologue during that scene is just brilliant. Just by the way, that was my number one too.
Oh, what happened to one fell through the cracks? What happened to the Dark Knight?
Dark Knight was 4.
Yeah, where was it on your list?
That's why. Never mind.
Dark Knight was 4, and you said no, it's higher. Yeah, I had Dark Knight at 4.
Then I messed up that then. So I apologize then.
No, you're good. You're good.
You can say whatever you want now about American Psycho.
I mean, Jeremy's basically said everything. I'm just saying there's only just to pile on, but. Yeah, I mean, it was the film that really, established Christian Bale as to who he is now. Yeah. And just, like I said, just everything, like, it was just very well directed, and just the whole, like, after, he was jealous of someone's business card, he goes and murders a homeless man for no reason. And just that whole thing, and like, the getting into the restaurants, and like calling the restaurant maitre d' and was like, oh, do you have a table? No, absolutely not. We're booked for 3 weeks. Okay, thank you. And just those little touches were just, I mean, and it's just a fantastic film all the way around. And like I said, and the ending leaves it up to you could think it go one way or another. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just that's what that movie brought Christian Bale to my attention, and he's stuck in my mind since then. So that's why I put it at number 1, because I've seen it so many times, and it's just a great film. So
I mean, I've seen it a bunch of times.
Excuse me.
I like Jeremy, have followed Christian Bale since he was in Empire of the Sun, and he was in movies and other things like that. So I knew of him when he was a kid. But when he got older, and that was the movie that put him on the map, then he started getting movies like The New World and Prestige and Machine. I mean, you're like, oh my God, this guy's got ridiculous range. All right, so now the cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows what number it's The Dark Knight. I'm gonna put an asterisk by this. I think this is the most iconic character that he has played, and that's the reason he played Bruce Wayne and Batman. He did it 3 times. Yes, does he give phenomenal performances in other films? Yes, he does. But what is the film that everybody's going to know him by? What are the films? And I feel like, to me, The Dark Knight is one of the greatest films I have ever seen in my entire lifetime. That's how good The Dark Knight. And he gives a great performance in the film as 2 people, Batman and Bruce Wayne. And he played this character 3 times. But I think this film really captured him as, like, he can do no wrong. Christian Bale can do no wrong. Once he did this, I put him on a pedestal as probably up there in the top 2 or 3 actors of his generation. With the Damons, with the DiCaprios, with the people like that. I mean, he might be the top of his generation. Yeah. And I feel like, he's gotten Oscars. He's gotten Oscar nominations for doing all these different changing of losing weight, gaining weight, makeup, this. But I think the film that really, to me, is the film that really made him just the biggest star in Hollywood is Batman, and Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. And I just can. It's one of the greatest films of all time, in my opinion. Not just comic. It's the greatest comic book film of all time. Number one. You can at me if you want. I don't care.
No, I don't.
But I believe it's the greatest comic book movie of all time. But it's one of the greatest movies of all time. And he gives one of his best performances. He didn't just like, oh, I'm going to be some campy thing. No, I'm going to be Batman, and it's going to be real. Like this guy actually can exist in society. I know you had it at 4, Nick, so you go with number 4.
Yes, I know, all the way down at number 4. But no, I know.
5.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I never saw the 89 Batman and everything like that. So this was the first this series was the first like Batman series I ever really watched. So that was just in seeing him, and I was like that is Batman. From the little I knew of him, I wasn't like real big into comics back then, but I was like, wow, he keeps you in the movie, and it's just so well directed, so well shot, so well everything, and just he sticks out in every scene he's in, and it's great. And I watched that movie so much. I remember seeing it opening night, and it was absolutely fantastic. So,
yeah. You got any thoughts about The Dark Knight, Jeremy, or Christian Bale?
Yeah,
Batman
I mean, I can't take anything away from this. I think he is absolutely the best on the big screen portrayal we've had of Batman. And there've been some other really good ones. I love Michael Keaton but what he does in those films, he really creates a real kind of human character. You really buy into it, and you need him as an anchor to take you through those films. And Christian Bale working together with Christopher Nolan really created, Batman, and really made him real. I would say there's a couple reasons I didn't put it in my top 5. One is if you take The Dark Knight as a film, I feel like he's a little bit second banana in that one. I feel like he's a little overshadowed by Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger kind of really takes the spotlight in that film, even though, of course, Bale's great, but I feel like he's not as much the focus. And the other reason is I think it's kind of one of those things where I look at his performance over the 3 films. I feel like, Batman Begins, you see his character at one stage, and then he kind of moves into another stage in the second film. And then in the third film, coming to his ultimate conclusion, I feel like it's a great arc of a performance over 3 films. So it's hard for me to just single out one of those. I feel like if you take all 3 and you take the journey that he goes on in those films all together, it is some of his best work. It's just, I felt like singling out one performance from one movie, I kind of had to go with some other choices, but you can't take away from it. I know some people are always going to make fun of the voice, the Batman voice, and maybe it's a little silly on some level, but I think that you can't take away from the character that's there and what he does as that character, and what he, even though I'm not a huge Dark Knight Rises fan, you really do see the great conclusion of that character's arc in that film, and the performance is fantastic there, as well as all 3 of them. So it absolutely was going to be on, at least one list, and it deserved to be.
Yeah, I wanted to put Dickie Eklund first, but I was like, nah, I gotta put Batman.
Yeah.
Right? I love Dark Knight. I cannot get enough about the Dark Knight. But all right, so let's get Jeremy real quickly. Give me a couple of honorable mentions that maybe we haven't talked about yet.
And there's a lot we can talk about. I'm gonna go to a movie that I think is maybe not as well known, and I don't think you've seen it, Dan, and it's really good. So going back when he was still kind of coming up, you go back pre-American Psycho to a movie called Velvet Goldmine, which is a film by Todd Haynes, who is a really fantastic director. You may know him. Carol is a film that he did, and Far From Heaven, some really great films. And back in the 90s, he was still kind of a filmmaker on the rise. He did a great movie called Safe with Julianne Moore, and then he did Velvet Goldmine. And basically, this is about the glam rock era of the early 1970s, back when you had like David Bowie and Roxy Music and all these bands and this whole era back then. And it was when in music sexual identity was starting to kind of come into music and pop culture, and like the subcultures were really starting to be more aware of this and talk about this more. And yeah, Christian Bale basically plays a reporter. He's investigating this kind of David Bowie type figure who's played by Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, and he, you can see he's struggling with his sexuality a bit, and he's kind of obsessed with this guy who's kind of a gay icon to some degree. And it's a really great performance by a young actor, and what he portrays in terms of struggling with these feelings and this identity. I think it really, even today, is very resonant, and I think it's something a lot of people need to see. And it's a really underrated movie. It's got great music in it. Jonathan Rhys-Meyers performs a lot of songs from the era, and I think it's really fantastic what he does. Another one, I kind of mentioned this to Dan. This isn't one that a lot of people would think of, but I want to give a little love to the American dub of the Japanese animated film Howl's Moving Castle from Studio Ghibli. That's your list too.
Yeah. Well, my honorable list, yeah.
I mean your honorable mention list, but it's he basically is the title character. He's this kind of a wizard magician type character and he's very mysterious and very gruff, but you'll see his character kind of open up throughout the story. And one of the things about these type of films is, they do it originally with the Japanese actors. And so when they come in later, an American or French or any other countries try to do their audio track for these films, they kind of have to match to what's already been done. So you're more limited. It's only your voice, and you have to kind of match to something that's already been created. And I think for an actor like Christian Bale to really create a character and involve you in that with what he does with something that's already kind of recreated is very impressive. And it's a unique kind of challenge. And there have been other actors that have tried that haven't really pulled that off the same way. And he really gives one of the best performances in these films, I think.
What do you got, Nick?
Okay, I've got two. Well, I did have three, but he mentioned the third one. My first one being Public Enemies.
Yep.
I love that story in general, and I lived in Indiana for a while, so I knew a lot of those locations. And I mean, and just that the back and forth between him and Johnny Depp is really, really well done. And I've always kind of been a fan of Michael Mann's films. They're just kind of like, I think they're good. I don't think there are some.
He's had a couple great ones.
He's had a couple great ones, but he's also had a couple very meh ones.
Yeah. He's
very hit or miss, but his really good ones are really good to me. So, but no, him as Melvin Pulvis going after John Dillinger. So no, and but I had a fantastic cast around him as well. So it was that was just a really fun film, and really enjoyed everything he did in that. And then the other one is the second one would be 3:10 to Yuma.
Oh yeah, so
So an earlier James Mangold film who's really come on as of late. Him and Russ, just another example of him being in a really good cast of 3 or 4 people and just bouncing off of them and doing a fantastic job. And just, it was one of the, it was in a time where there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, coming at the tail end of I would say Westerns as close as we're going to get. And so that was one that I really enjoyed, and it had a really tense and final scene when they're at the train station. And it was just really well done all the way through, and mainly just the back and forth between Russell Crowe and Christian Bale is really hard to forget. So those two were really close to making the list, but not quite.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, man. I love 3:10 to Yuma. That is a great film.
Yes.
You rarely get a remake that is better than the original, and arguably this version is better than the Glenn Miller. I think is it Glenn Miller?
Oh, Glenn Ford.
Ford, that's it.
Glenn Ford and Van Heflin. And the original is great, but the remake is probably even better.
That's what's shocking about it. And Ben Foster. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
But Ben Foster steals the show.
You're right. Christian Bale. Christian Bale's fantastic. And I just have American Hustle. That's the only one I have. Irving Rosenfeld. another character that you don't expect him to play, that he just absolutely knocks out of the park in another David O. Russell movie. He was in a string of David O. Russell movies. Oh, David O. Russell was just on a roll there for about 2 or 3, 4 years. It's like he kept on bringing new movie out every year, and it just he finally stopped with Joy, and I don't think he's come out with one since Joy. Now that I think about it, I don't know. I could be wrong. I just don't remember anything since Joy. But yeah, I really enjoyed him as Irving Rosenfeld in American Hustle. But Jeremy, go down your 5 from 5 to 1.
Can I just throw out a couple more real quick? I'm not going to go into detail, but another great Todd Haynes film that he's very good in is I'm Not There. And then what was the other one I wanted to throw out? Oh, darn it, I'm losing it now. I'll just say one thing you got to give credit to an actor is when they can be in a really terribly awful, horrible movie and still really be good. And you walk away from the movie going, oh, that was a crap fest. But, man, he was still good in it. And I got to say, Exodus, Gods and Kings, like, seriously, one of the biggest turds I've ever seen. But he's still good. He's a good Moses. I think he's one of the best Moseses that we've had on screen in a bad movie. So, and the one that I really wanted to see and I just haven't got to yet is Out of the Ashes. I've heard a lot of good things about that movie.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, so
Out of the furnace,
Out of the Ashes.
Oh God, he's fantastic in Out of the Furnace.
So yeah, that one unfortunately I didn't get to, and also Hostiles. I've heard that.
He's fantastic in Hostiles.
Yeah, he's great in a lot of stuff. So we just got to give him all right. But okay, I'll walk through my 5. Just count them down then. Yeah, my number 5 was him as Dieter Dengler in Werner Herzog's Rescue Dawn. My number 4 is him in The Prestige. Number 3 as the tortured Trevor Resnick in The Machinist. Number 2 is Dickie Eklund and David O. Russell's The Fighter. And number 1, of course, Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
All right, Nick.
All right. My number 5 was The Prestige. 4 was Dark Knight. 3 was The Fighter. 2 was Equilibrium. And then American Psycho was my number 1 as well.
There we go.
And mine was American Psycho, Patrick Bateman at 5. The Big Short, Michael Berry at number 4. Dick Cheney from Vice at number 3. Dickie Eklund from The Fighter at number 2. And Bruce Wayne / Batman at number 1. Jeremy, where can you be found?
Jeremy Paul Adams on Facebook and YouTube. I have a Twitter too. I don't always look at it, but it's Jeremy Movie Buff on Twitter if you want to send me a message there. And I'm also involved with Full Metal Trivia, which is a trivia channel that you can check out. There's a lot of great content there. And I also, if you really like trivia on the internet, I am a question writer for the Movie Trivia Schmodown. I'm sure most people watching this are aware and enjoy it. So continue to check it out.
And Nick?
My most active, you'll find me on Facebook, just at Nick Carley, Carley. And like I said, I'm real big in all the movie trivia leagues around that we've going in both multiplex and Full Metal. And, just like to talk about movies all the time. So, if you have anything worth mentioning, let me know. And
you can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Well, not Instagram right now. I'm having some problems with my Instagram. Pinterest. I'm that guy on Pinterest. Just people are on Pinterest. Yeah, I do a lot on Pinterest. Also, I'm a writer for the cinesportstalk.com. That's CINSPORTALK.com, where I write about sports and movies. I got 3 press screenings this week, 3 more next week. And like Nick and Jeremy said, you can find me on Facebook and all that stuff. So, if you want to get on the top 5 weekly, just message me and we'll find a topic for you and we'll get you on. So for Jeremy and Nick and myself, good evening. Good night.